Yo, Elliot, I'm a corrections officer in a state prison. And time again, these skinny little bastards show up in my prison, and in a matter of weeks, they're jacked. Of course, you've made a video on this in the past. I'm wondering if you have any brand new ideas as to why the hell these dudes get so big so quick when they end up behind bars.
Yo, Elliot!
Well, my corrections officer friend, you probably have a bit more insight as to why this may be happening since you're behind those prison bars day in and day out. And in your question, you mentioned something with regard to the high amounts of sodium that's in their food. And you even ask, is high amounts of sodium the key to rapid muscle building? Well, in my professional experience, high amounts of sodium will lead to weight gain. Not necessarily muscle per se, but you may swell up. You may have more pumped up body parts by eating foods that are high in sodium. When you sent me your question, the very first thing I thought of was when young men and women go to college for the first time. They leave mommy and daddy's nest and they go to a university, and there is this phenomenon of the freshman 15, they call it. This is where a unexplained weight gain shows up in a very predictable pattern for young people who go away to college. And it does have a lot to do with the massive amounts of processed foods all of a sudden they get access to. Whether or not they're building muscle may have more to do with what they're doing outside of the cafeteria, but weight gain is inevitable. Now, when it comes to the prison situation that you find yourself in, what I thought was, where are most of these young men that are showing up in your prison coming from? What did their life look like pre-prison and then now weeks after being in prison? And I could only imagine that a good percentage of those young men come from environments that are quite unstable, meaning that there's no regular routine in their life, either be it sleep-wake cycles, be it eating cycles, being absolutely anything that would bring consistency to their life. And one thing that we know with regard to muscle building and body building and getting stronger is that consistency must be there. These young men that come from environments where maybe there are no parents, maybe they don't have a home, maybe they're constantly in the state of fight or flight for their lives. Maybe they were using or addicted to drugs that drew energy and life force from their body. I have to consider first what their life looked like pre-prison before I can begin to think about what is going on physiologically once they show up behind those bars with you. When they show up in your prison, my man, you ought to know that you are there as the boundary holder. When these young men come from environments where there are no boundaries, there's pure chaos. Their lives are kind of blowing in the wind, and whatever happens, happens. If I eat, I eat. If I don't eat, I don't eat. If I need to stay up late because whatever fearful situation may be knocking at my door, I don't get sleep that night. And even the constant stimulation of the catabolic hormones associated with being in an environment that is perhaps as violent or more so than many of us have ever experienced in our lives. Going to prison in many ways brings stability to their lives. And we all know that in regards to building muscle and building strength, what you need is consistency and stability. You ought to know what you're going to eat the next day, or if you're going to have a meal the next day. You ought to know if you're going to sleep that night, or if there is a bed for you to sleep in. Routine is key for the development of muscular systems for our body. So where there was no routine, now there's routine. And I think that's one thing that has to do with why they may be getting so much bigger. Even the sleep-wake cycle, their circadian rhythm and its effect on the hormones have to be considered. The other thing, though, that I thought of when I read your question was that most young men in society don't have a place to put their sword. We are men, and as men, we desire the ability to ejaculate. What I mean by that is use our energy in an extroverted way. And if we don't get involved with sports, if we don't get involved with some physical creative pursuit, exercise, bodybuilding, that's why the things that we do are so freaking important, particularly for young men in that warrior stage. You will find another way to use that energy. Oftentimes, it's for survival. Oftentimes, it's for safety and security, so the inclusion in gangs. So that energy is going to go somewhere, whether we use it constructively or destructively, but it's there. Every single young man develops a sword in his hand, and it must be used. When these young men who didn't have an outlet for that energy show up in your prison, and there's nothing and nowhere to go but sleep, eat, and train, they now have an outlet. They now have an area, an arena, a way, a place where they can take all that pent up energy that they may have been using, causing chaos out in the world of chaos, and now direct it towards their own bodies and development of their own strength and ability. So, my man, to answer your question, I don't know if sodium is why they're building muscle bigger in prison. But I do know one thing, that when young men are given stability and consistency, either taught, given, or subjected to it, something begins to change. Order ensues. And when there's order and there's direction, meaning a place to put yourself, a place to direct yourself, that incredible things happen. So whether it's building muscle or building an empire, you know that you're going to need consistency and a place to put your energy. And apparently, prison is that place. Done.